Can I say first, the biggest challenge I've got is I'm trying to cover what is a 2-day workshop in 40 minutes for you. So I'm going to, obviously, it scratches the surface, but what I'm hoping is that you get a flavour of the sorts of things you should be looking for when you're developing strategy and business plans. Because from my point of view, if you get this concept right, if you get the strategy and understanding of what it is you do and why you're doing it and how you're doing it, things such as funding applications, business plans, getting support, getting stakeholder support, becomes a lot easier. And my experience has been that quite often people are doing wonderful work, but they actually have a problem explaining what they do and why they do it to other people. So today, as I said, 40 minutes, it's a little bit of a flavour of what we do. There is a lot more stuff you can download from our website for free. And again, as Flora said, that we do workshops in more depth around the country, aimed mainly at charities or people working within the social economy sector. You're welcome to look in and get more details from that. If at any point you've got questions, please stick your hand up and ask me, because I'll try and relate what we're trying to do, answer your question and relate it back to the work that you're doing. To start off with, strategy is effectively just, it's a plan designed to deliver a long-term significant impact. A lot of organizations go through the motions of doing a strategy because it seems to be a requirement. The board says we've got to have a strategy, let's do it. There's no purpose behind it. What I would say is you have to have a purpose. What is it that you want to do? What is that significant change you want to make? And from Flora's description, this is all about tackling the rare diseases. You want to find cures, you want to set up support groups. Whatever it is you're doing, you need to have a goal. You've got to have an ambition. This is what we want to do. Because that focuses you and focuses everyone else you'll be working with. That's where we want to get to. Now, to me, there are two drivers. Primarily, you've got one thing, which is whatever it is that you want to do, what are the better outcomes that you want to generate? Whether it's improved health, support, funding cures, whatever it is, that is the primary goal. But your secondary goal in that is that actually you want to do it in a sustainable way. There's no point starting a group, getting people involved, getting a lot of publicity, and then finding that you run out of money, you run out of steam, and the whole thing collapses, because that's no good to anyone. So the second part is that you actually want to improve and sustain your organization in order that you can actually deliver what you set out to do, your strategic objectives. What you also have to be careful of, and I call them influencers rather than core drivers for what you're going to do. You have to be aware of your external conditions, what's going on around you, and you also have to be aware of your competitors. Now you may turn around and say, we don't have any competitors, we're each of us dealing with one particular rare disease, no one else is doing it. But when you look at the world of research, when you look at the world of funding, every other person in this room is your competitor. They're all vying for the same funds. So they may not seem to you to be direct competitors, but in the big bad world out there, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people in groups are vying for the same funds, so they are your competitors. And you need to be aware of what they're up to and how you've got to present yourself in a way that actually benefits yourself. To me, the journey is that this is where you're at now. I'm representing this as a car. You're starting off on a journey. And what you want to do is you have a long-term vision. And Flora very kindly got some handouts for you to work on during the break, which is to think about your vision. To me, the vision for any organization is vital. If you haven't got the vision right, nothing else works. And what I would say, and you can apply this during the break, that the vision has to be short, it has to be powerful, and it has to be emotional. It needs to engage people, it needs to be simple. I go and run strategy facilitations and people tell me things like, oh yes, we've got a vision statement, it's pinned up in my room, can I go and get it? It's 3 pages long. That is not a vision. A vision is short and snappy, something that people will remember, something that will motivate people. And it may sound cheesy and very American, but don't worry about it, it works. So what you have is a long-term vision. It may be something you never fulfill in your lifetime, but you keep aiming towards it. What you're also doing is you're setting out what is it we want to achieve, but you're constrained by the fact that you've got to work within your value system. You're all here to do good things. You're not cowboys, you're not the mafia, so there are certain constraints. There are some things you will not do, or you shouldn't do, because there is a code of conduct, ethical behavior that you have to pursue. So that puts a restraint on what you do, how you raise your money, and how you go about doing what you do. The other thing is, you're bound also by your capabilities. What resources have you got? What skills have you got internally? So that constrains that road, that mission, how you set about doing things in order to achieve your vision. And I put this red ring around there saying that actually these are the constraints. You've got three constraints: the values, the capabilities, and your vision. Because that's your vision, that we want to find a cure for something. You don't want to go off in different directions saying we'll do something else. No, you have to keep going there, and you're constrained here. The more capabilities you can build up, the wider the road gets and the faster your car can go. And so in the previous slide I talked about the second internal driver, about what you need to do to make yourself more sustainable and more capable. So the more you can do in terms of getting resources, more capabilities and skills you can get into your organization, the faster you can go, the more you can achieve. For a long time, I was constantly asked, what defines a successful organization? And I used to have a massive checklist because there's so many things I want to do. And I came across a piece of research a few years ago by McKinsey's, an international consultancy, quite well known. Don't often like using their things because they're a little bit glib. But I thought this was very appropriate. This applies to any type of organization. And you can tell it's a consultant who's done it because, as you can see, everything starts with an A. I probably spent more time trying to get that right than the research they did. But basically the research was they followed 4,000 businesses in the US over 40 years. And at the end of 40 years, they turned around and said, out of those 4,000 businesses, which are the ones that are still going, which are the ones that are successful, and what are the common characteristics of the ones that are successful? So they tracked what they say is the steps to success. And what they said is that basically, number one is aspire. We know where we want to go. We have a vision. And everyone within our organization shares that vision, and we bought into that. So we've set ourselves strategic objectives, we've got visions, we've got targets. And everyone knows what's happening. The ones that are not successful are the ones where you go in and ask people, what's your organization about? And they go, don't know, I just come here and get paid. I have no idea why we're here or what we're doing. Number two is actually being honest about your capabilities. Where are you now? Because part of your strategy, part of your business planning is how do we build on our strengths, how do we overcome our internal weaknesses. You can't do that unless you know you have an honest opinion, you have an honest view of what your capabilities are. It's like, there's no point going to a doctor and not telling them what's wrong with you because they can't treat you. You've got to be able to turn around and actually say, I understand where we're weak, I understand where we're strong, I understand what we need to build on, because part of your strategy is building on that capability and improving it. That allows you to achieve your vision. The next thing is actually coming up with a set of action plans. These are the things we need to do to achieve those strategic objectives and that internal improvement. What are they? How many are there? Have you actually looked at them and identified the ones that are most appropriate and the ones that are most urgent, and not do the ones that actually look good but don't achieve anything? Now these three things are quite easy. We can sit down, I could sit down with any one of you, and in about 20-30 minutes we could come up with all that, because that's the easy bit. This is the hard bit, these last two. You actually now got to deliver all of this. One is that you've got to act, you've got to manage that journey. This is what we've decided. We've come up with a portfolio of initiatives. How are we going to deliver it? How are we going to actually, in practice, deliver this? And quite often that management issue, that delivery, is quite difficult. Getting the execution and the correct approach right is quite difficult. And that's where, again, you need management skills and training and support to do it. And the other thing is, you can't stop. You can never stop. Because the outside world is constantly changing, your competitors always catching up and overtaking you. Even when you think you're getting there, you have to keep looking, you have to keep changing and keep moving forward. So to me, there's a journey that you do in turning in looking at your strategic, organising your strategy and coming up with a business plan. If you start with the problem. What is the problem? Have you actually identified the problem that needs to be solved? What is your vision regarding that problem? It is that we want to make the world a healthier place. We want to get rid of poverty. We want to improve the education in the City of London. Whatever it is, what is your vision? And that vision related to overcoming that particular problem that you identified. The next step is actually coming up with a solution. Have we got a solution that works? Are we working towards a solution that may work? So that's part of our strategy, particularly when you're dealing with research. We think we have an inkling that's the direction we need to go in, that's the solution we want to deliver. Have we actually thought it through, have we researched it, do we know that this may produce the right results? Then comes the hard bit, similar to the vision statement. I need to have a value proposition. The value proposition, and I'll talk about it a bit more, is what distinguishes you, what differentiates you from everyone else out there. So if you think about it, and I have to say, I've done a limited amount with medical research, but I've done a lot with all sorts of other charities and research organizations, quite often working for the funders. And the funders will tell me they are inundated with funding applications. They get thousands upon thousands every week. And they have to sift through them, and they have to be very quick about deciding which ones to do, because there are too many to go into detail. And if something stands out, someone comes up with a value proposition, this is what we're about, this is what we want to achieve, this is why we're going to do it. These are the things that we know we can do. That immediately differentiates you. And the moment someone actually spends a bit more time going through your funding application or business plan, you've got better than even chance of actually getting the funding, even if it's not immediately further down the line. So the value proposition is very important. All that builds into that you need to have a business model. How are we going to do this? That's a delivery bit I talked about earlier. How are we going to deliver all these things that we want to do? What is our business model? And our business model is constantly looking at our value proposition. Can we improve it? Are we delivering it? And it's a continuous thing. It's that momentum. We cannot stop. We have to keep improving. We have to come both in terms of the organizational structure, the culture within the organization, and delivering the outputs that we set out to achieve. And if we do that, we create the outcomes, and those outcomes in the long term achieve the change in the world that you want. That's heading towards the vision that you set to yourself, and making sure that you're continuously changing the organizational culture to meet the external and internal requirements will help you become sustainable and there in the long term. This may not apply to you, but you've probably all gone out and identified the problems that you're trying to tackle. But quite often, again, my experience has been when I ask people, what is the problem? They find it very difficult to actually pinpoint what the problem is. What is the problem? How does it affect the people, your beneficiaries group? How do you know this problem exists? You'd be surprised how many people can't actually. I've had people come and say, it's just a gut feel. I know it's a problem. They can't actually quantify it, they can't prove it. They can't even find anyone else that agrees with them that this is a problem that needs to be solved. Again, you tend to find, and this may be an issue, that funders and supporters and stakeholders want to support something that has quite a wide consequence. It's a widespread problem. And you also need to explain why this is a problem. What way does it affect people? How does it affect socio-economic or human lives? In what way does it affect people? And how certain that you actually identify the underlying cause and not just the symptoms. And you're not treating the symptoms, what you're trying to do is actually dealing with the underlying cause. And also that question, why has it been solved already? If this is such a big problem that you pointed out, why has it not been solved? Now a lot of this is to direct your thinking, but also to preempt what your stakeholders and funders might ask you. They may ask you these questions, and if it's built into your business plan, it shows that you're thinking in the right terms, and it shows that you know what you're doing. So that identification of your problem actually drives the vision. Your vision is it's about creating a positive future that eliminates a specific problem. It's a long-term aim. It's not something you're going to achieve in the next 2-3 years. It's something that may take hundreds of years, or it may take 50, 60 years. It may never be achieved, but that is your vision, that long term, this is what we want to try and do. It is something that you need to focus on. What are the outcomes? What is the result of that vision? It's going to make people healthier, it's going to improve their lives, whatever it is. I'll repeat, it needs to be simple. If I go into an organisation, and I again did this recently, I did a board facilitation, I had 17 board members, and I asked them to write down what the vision was. Not to tell each other, but just write it down and then stand up and tell them. They came up with 20 different visions. One person said, I think we've got 3, I'm not sure which one it is. Now, if the people leading the organisation can't agree where they're going, how can you expect everyone else to follow? You've got to, the reason is it wasn't simple. It's something simple, everyone understands it. It should be emotional, it's something that tugs at the heartstrings. And you should engage and mobilize stakeholders if you do all that. And there's nothing to stop you having a powerful dream. If you don't have a powerful dream, people don't engage with you. You have the dream, then you can tell them how in practice you're going to deliver what you're going to deliver. And I quite often ask this, and I'll ask this of you. How many of you have heard of there's this rather obscure person from America called Martin Luther King? Anyone heard of him? About 50 years ago, he was standing in Washington. He had 1 million people there. He stood up there and he said, I have a business plan. Is that right? You're all agreeing, you're laughing, you're agreeing. What did he say? I have a dream. What's another word for a dream? A vision. He knew it's that emotional connection. I've got a picture in my head, and I want you to see the same picture in your head. I have a vision, I want to share that vision with you. I'm going to make it simple. It's something that you can buy into. And when you buy into it, I can motivate, galvanize 1 million people to follow me. If I come up with a business plan, you've lost people after the first page. So maybe you wouldn't get to the bottom of the first page. They just switch off. So please be careful about that. If you're coming up with a solution, again, is it truly solving the problem that you identify? Again, I get so many people, and it's, whatever field it is, coming up and saying, we've got the solution, and we question them. You identified the problem, you said this is the root cause of the problem. How is this solving that? They're going, well, I don't know, it seems to be the right thing. They haven't thought it through. Have you tested it out? How do you know? How easy is it to understand the solution? If you go and say to people that you're helping, I've got this very complicated methodology, they can't understand, they can't engage with it, the families can't engage with it, the funders don't understand it, stakeholders don't understand it, you don't get support. And it's hard to deliver because it's too complicated. You want to make it easy. You want to make it easy to understand, easy to deliver. And also easy for the beneficiaries to engage with. If you make it too hard for them, it's not going to happen. It's like having, used to be like having dentist appointments or GP appointments. You could only come, on a particular day at a particular time. For most people, it makes it very, very difficult to do. You cannot engage with your patient. If you make it that's convenient for them, they can come when they want. Makes life a lot easier. And are you providing a solution that users require? Not the funders, not what you think is right, what is appropriate for them. Because again, too many people are doing things because they want to do it, but the funders are told them will give you funding if you do A, and actually your user group want B. And finally, do you really understand the risk associated with that solution? Because you may have come up with something, but the risk associated was so big or so problematic that nobody will fund you or you can't actually deliver on that. And again, this is a consideration. Part of this is getting all these answers, having thought through these things into your business plan, into your strategic thinking, so that the people that you're approaching for support, again, have a complete understanding that you thought this through, you understand the risks, and understand what you're up to. I talked about a business model. I'm putting up a simplified version of an exercise that we do, which actually helps people come to grips with what their business model for their organization is. And very simply put, what we have in the middle is what is our value proposition? What is it we want to do? What differentiates us? And how do we deliver that to our different groups? And I'm going to call them our customer groups. I have 3 customer groups mainly. I have those people that I want to help, users or beneficiaries. I have the people who are going to pay for that service, it's the funders or People may contract with you, people may donate money to you, and thirdly, it's the stakeholders, the people whose goodwill and help and support you need, without whom you will not be able to do all this. And the value proposition for each of them will be slightly different. It's the same value, it's the same set of things you're going to deliver, but the way you pitch it to each of those groups is going to be slightly different. Because the user group may only be interested in, is it going to help my health, is it going to improve my life? That's all I'm interested in. The funders may be interested in something quite different. You know, what's the long-term effect? How much money is it going to save us? What sort of social impact is it going to have? That may be of more interest to them. So I need to modify my statement to them to make sure they understand it. This is why they should engage us, funders, support us. And similarly with stakeholders, that you need to think about what it is that they're looking for in engaging with you and supporting you. And the crudest example I can give you, and I've quite often asked this of people, if you're sending your child to a fee-paying school, who are your customers? The parents. It's not the children. Yeah, most charities I go to and I say, who are your customers? They turn around and say, it's the user group. And they concentrate all the time on the user group. They don't even think about the funders. But the funders are the ones who are paying you. And actually, they're your customers. The user group usually are very happy if anyone comes along and says, I'll help you out with improve your life and all the rest of it. Great. I don't have to pay for it. Come and do it. It's the funders who need to convince, not only that you need to be paying us, that we need to develop this and work on this long term. Most funders complain that when they hand out money to people, they don't even get thanks, and the only time they remember the game is the next time they need a round of funding. We need to treat them as customers just as we would the beneficiary group, keep them on site. Similarly, stakeholders. Now, in order to deliver my value proposition to these groups, I need to identify all the key activities and resources within my organization that's going to make this possible. What are the key activities you undertake, without which you could not deliver your value proposition? What are the resources you need? A website, clinics, an ambulance, I don't know. What is it you need? Because if you did not have that, you couldn't do it. Do you need trained personnel? Do you need medically trained personnel? Do you need publicists? Do you need fundraisers? Because without that, you're not going to succeed. Can I actually identify those? Because if I've identified those, then that's part of my strategic plan. If I haven't got them, I need to recruit them. If I haven't got them, I need to go out and borrow them. If I haven't got them, I need to tell my funders, this is what I need money for, because in order to do that, deliver that solution, that value proposition, I need to have these resources in place. I need to have operational staff, because the way we need to deliver it, our key activities require us to do A, B, and C, clinical testing, going out in the field, whatever it is. Without that, we cannot do what we want. Have I identified those? Doesn't mean you identify every single thing you do. The things that are absolutely key in your delivery, the things that will help you differentiate yourself from everyone else looking for that funding. Can you develop the skills and those resources to match what you need? And underneath that, what are your systems in terms of cost control? Because again, this is something that funders and donors really, really worry about. We'll give you the money, but how do we know you're going to use it properly? I want to be able to convince them, not only have we identified all the items up here, but we've costed them out and we know how to manage them. We've got proper management systems in place. And we also understand long-term our revenue capabilities. How is our money coming in now, and how are we looking to generate money in the future? That makes us sustainable, because again, funders are not happy about giving you money now, thinking that you may collapse in 6 months' time. They want to know you have some idea, you have some thinking about how you're going to get future funding, not necessarily from them, but from other sources. If you look to be sustainable, they're more likely to support you. And finally, very importantly, what are your internal metrics? How do you know you're succeeding? How do you know you're achieving those outcomes and results that you want? How are you capturing them? Have you built that in to your business model? Is that one of your key activities and one of your key resources? Because the more proof you can create, the more likely you are that these people are engaged and support you. Again, this is an exercise we get people to do, actually pinpointing what those activities are, capturing them, because once you've captured those, this is your capability platform, that McKinsey report, that honesty thing. This is where we're at now. If you want to go forward, if I wanted to look at my business model in 3 years' time, I've identified all the things that are key. I will then look at those and say, are we doing these as well as we could? Probably not. These are things that we need to improve. Are there any gaps in here? Yes, there are. But these are the things I need to get resources. I need to get funding to fill those gaps. So my strategy will be, how do I get from my business model here to the sort of business model I want to have in 3 years' time, 6 years' time, 9 years' time down the line. So my strategy will be driven by this business model and the necessity to keep improving my value proposition to the people who need my help the most. Coming back, I said I talked a little bit more about value proposition. The value proposition is a promise of value. I am saying to someone, if you buy my services, you buy my research, buy my product, there is something that's going to benefit you. You're going to get something out of that. So I'm making a promise of value to you. Come and buy this off me. It will do you good. It will make you happy. And the buyer, the customer, has to also buy into that. They understand that. Yes, I understand your value proposition, and I know that if I engage with you, that's what I'm going to get. Or at least I hope I'm going to get, and you will come through with it, because if you don't, then we've got a problem. To put it very bluntly, again, why should anyone buy, support, or use your service? I quite often ask people, if you didn't exist, would anyone notice? And actually, it's quite an embarrassing question. Quite a number of people said, you're right, actually, if you disappeared, nobody's cared. You need to create a value proposition where people actually turn around and say, no, we need you. We don't want you to disappear. I'm working with a sexual health charity, which a few years ago lost all its funding because the primary care trust turned around and said, well, we're not sure where our funding is coming from. We're not going to give you the money that's on your contracts. And the charity got to the point where actually was going to have to close down. And they went to the Department of Health. And they said, we don't want you to close down. We haven't got money to give you, but we'll come alongside you and try and find someone who will give you the money. The people they were helping started doing things like pub crawls and Facebook groups and tweeting and so on. They went out and raised £15,000, and these were refugee groups. And it so impressed one of the funders that not only was the Department of Health coming along saying, we haven't got politically, we're not allowed to give you money, or we think this is a vital organisation that must survive. Not only that, the very, very poor and sick people have gone out of the way to raise money saying, we don't want to use you, we cannot use you. One of the Sainsbury Family Trusts turned around and said, we're so impressed by this, we don't really understand what you're doing, but we'll give you £70,000 a year for the next 3 years, and we'll come alongside you and help you get some funding. That particular organisation is now tripled in size and is attracting a lot of funding because it understood its value proposition, was able to go out, even when things looked dire, it survived, it was sustainable. It actually turned around and said if it didn't exist, it would have a big impact on people's lives. Think about it. Have you thought through, is what you do actually making people's lives or people's jobs easier? Is it something that actually solves a current problem or potential future problem? Is it something that saves money? And when it comes to funding, I have I don't mind telling funders or local authorities or BCTs or their replacements, invest in us now because long term this is going to save you money. We can show you, we've got some models to show you that. And remember that each value proposition for each group is going to be different. What I say to the purchasers will be different from the beneficiary groups, it will be different from the stakeholder groups that I'll be engaging with. But if I can get that value proposition right, that when I go to people and say, if you engage with me, what I do is going to change your lives for the better, it's going to make your jobs easier and life easier, you're more likely to engage with you. Now, one of the biggest mistakes people make is when I say that you need to tell people what you do for them. They don't tell you what they do for you, they tell you what they do. So for instance, if you met someone at a cocktail party, and you ask them, what do you do? They say, I'm an accountant. How likely are you to engage with them? I think most people run away from accounting. If that person turned around and said, I save people thousands of pounds in tax that they should never have paid, most people will turn around and say, I'm interested, tell me more. Because now you're telling me something that's changing my life, that will make my life better. Whereas when saying to someone, I'm an accountant, just say, this is what I do, it's an activity. Well, I do not understand what benefit that is to me, other than you're likely to put me to sleep. I don't want that, so I'm not going to engage with you. Most people, most organizations I work with are very good at saying, this is what we do. the Martin Luther thing. Here's our business plan. This is what we do. Not interested. What is the vision? What is the value proposition? This is how we change lives. That's what they're interested in. Get that across, you'll get the support. Now again, no workshop like this is complete without going through these two things, the SWOT analysis, the PEST analysis. And I would emphasize again, a lot of people go through the motions of doing a SWOT analysis, which is looking at the strengths and weaknesses within your organization and looking at the external arena, what's going on, what are the opportunities and threats out there. But what you really should be thinking about is that when you're looking at your strengths, it is asking yourself, how effective is our management? How strong is our management? Can we deliver what we're doing? It's part of that capability pathway. If I can convince the funders we've got the management and the systems in place to do this, we're safe, it's not a risk. And if it isn't, I'm not going to turn around and say we've got crap management. I'll turn around and say our management needs improving. That's why we need funding. We actually need to improve that. We're a bunch of volunteers. We need full-time staff. Funders understand that. What you're doing is important. Understand your value proposition. And you identify you need a full-time manager, you need a program manager. Okay, we'll do that. How effective are your operations? How strong are they? How good is your governance? Again, this is about overcoming risk. Funders hate risk. Turn around and say, we've got a board of trustees, got their accountants on there, got someone medical, they know what they're doing, they oversee things, means I've got good governance. Now, how good are your relationship with other funders? If you've got good relationship, even if they're not going to fund you now, if you do good work, funders will recommend you to other funders and will say, we'll give you a letter of support. Again, this is a key strength that you can play on. And absolutely the opposite of that is looking at your weaknesses. What are our weaknesses within the organisation? Now, I'm not saying you go around and tell funders, by the way, we're just completely crap, don't fund us. It is about saying we've identified what's wrong with us, what are the things that need improving, that's part of our strategy, that's part of our funding requirement. But you can't do that, they won't give you the money unless you actually told them this is why we need the money. When you look at opportunities, again, look at things like, are your beneficiary numbers growing or are there new ones appearing? So this is where we thought this was a small problem and isolated, it's increasing, or people's conditions are getting worse. There is an opportunity out there because if it's increasing and having a bigger impact on the public, you're more likely to get the support, but you need to identify that. Is any new technology coming along that will help your service delivery? Is that an opportunity that we can use? Actually, that reduces our costs, improves the way we deliver our service. And are there any partnership opportunities out there? Who else can we work with? Because again, funders love to work with organisations that are working with other organisations rather than in isolation. This is only a selection. You could do a lot more. I've just put a few things up there. And similarly, if you're looking at threats, are your beneficiaries reducing? Are the numbers decreasing? Because funders don't like funding that. Actually, we don't think you need support because they're diminishing numbers. Are your competitors doing something better than you? Is technology overtaking? Why should I fund you? These days, a robot can come and do what you're doing better. That would be cheaper for us. How am I on top of that? And again, are your competitors going out forming partnerships with other people? That may actually outflank you. Think about these things and you have to be reacting to them all the time as part of your strategy. Again, looking externally, what are the things that are going on out there that may impact on your organisation in terms of long-term sustainability? Are there likely to be political changes or changes in legislation? What might be disallowed or allowed? Or sometimes, it's happened to one of the organisations I was working with, something that charities were doing in terms of supporting people or families on a particular issue. And then the government changed the law and said this was now something that local authorities would have to take on. So the charity, some people just turn around and say to the charity, why should we give you any money? It's now become a legal requirement. We don't need to support you anymore. And they were completely caught out by this, despite the fact they'd been lobbying for it for years. And they were sort of, oh my God, we didn't think it would really happen. And they were caught. All I'm saying is they hadn't got their antennae out to actually check on what was going on out there. Similarly, again, looking at the economic cycles, how does that impact on you? How does society, the changes in society impact on what you do? It may well be that you're turning around saying at the moment it's rare diseases and people not doing anything. It could be that people are, again, with the use of social media and everything, the way people use technology and so on, it could be something that more people could connect with. Because why do I want to give to Marie Curie? Everyone's giving to them. I'd rather work with someone nobody's talking about. So again, technology and social changes could be opportunities. Putting this, again, going back into what I was saying, that once you've done this model, that you understood what you're doing, and you have in mind where you want to be in I'm using a 3-year time frame, that in 3 years' time, these are the things that we want to achieve. So we want to hypothetically create a business model of what we would look like in 3 years' time. My strategy is then driven about what are the changes I need to implement, what are the steps, what are the little action plans I need to take, quarter by quarter, month by month, that will get me here. Taking in consideration those pest things, those external things, how are they going to impact on me? How do I take them into consideration? And what are the internal changes I need to keep making, improving management skills, resources, and systems in there that would allow me to get to where I want to get to in 3 years' time. So this is, again, it's a really good tool in terms of helping you map out visually what you want to do. And once you've done that, it's very easy to write up a business plan or a funding application on the back of this, because you've captured 99% of what you need. The other thing, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, I would suggest that every single thing that you're looking at in terms of your strategy, I would also say that you need to think about what is the risk associated with that. Have you thought about it? And then what are you doing in terms of actually mitigating that risk, reducing that risk? Both in terms of what you do as an organization. You don't want to do something that's going to impact on you horribly. You don't want to do something that's going to harm your the people you're trying to help. And similarly, the people you're turning to for support want to know that if they're associated with you, things are not going to go wrong. They're not going to end up on the front page of the Daily Mail saying so-and-so supported this organisation and it's dreadful, whatever it is. It happens quite a lot. It is well-known. Daily Mail, the risk of appearing on the Daily Mail is something that scares a lot of corporates. Now, when it comes to collating all that information, we want to actually summarize all this down into a business plan. And what I want you to bear in mind that a business plan, to me, is usually something that people don't tend to use internally that much anymore. It is something that most people don't read, and it's usually something that's driven by the fact that external people, external stakeholders, funders, supporters are asking for. It's a way of creating credibility, it's a way of actually creating confidence in what you do. It's convincing the readers that what you do is good and doing it in a very, very quick way, in a way that excites them and says, yes, I want to do something, I want to support you. So to my mind, I've got a structure, suggested structure there, that what you want to do is actually put across your value proposition. This is the problem that exists. We think we've come up with a solution. This is why we think we're the best people to sort this out. This is our value proposition. These are the resources we need to deliver that. These are the systems we've got internally, the management and our risk management. That means that if you give us money, you can trust us that we will deliver it. And that's why we need your support. And that can be done on one page or page and a half. And then the rest of the business plan, which should only be about 15, 20 pages long at the maximum, is just fleshing that out a bit more. If you've got the handout, what I would say is that I've given a framework in there. Again, this is a suggested framework. You can choose on it. It's in 3 parts because I couldn't fit it all in onto one slide. You can't read it. And it's just step by step. What are the chapter headings of your business plan, and what are the components within that business plan that you need to do? As I said, depending on the size of the organisation, you may want to use some of this, or you may want to use a lot of these. But it gives you an idea of the sort of content that needs to go into the business plan. And again, I will repeat, it needs to be quite short, and all the extra stuff that you want to talk about in the business plan can go into an appendix. Remember, the whole point of the business plan is to excite the reader with a very short story. This is what we're about. This is why being associated with us is going to do good, and you're going to benefit from this, and society is going to benefit from this. Give us adoption, give us the support, whatever it is you're looking for the business plan. Okay. Right, that's the end of that one.